That night when my nephew came into my room while I was sleeping turned out to be the craziest and most exciting night of my life. It all happened 2 weeks ago. It had been one of those exhausting days, the kind that wears you down completely, leaving every muscle aching and your mind craving nothing but the gentle embrace of sleep. Work had drained me, and by the time I got home, darkness had settled over the house, wrapping everything in a heavy stillness. I barely had the energy to climb the stairs, let alone cook dinner or watch TV. All I wanted was my bed, the cool touch of sheets and the quiet relief of slipping away from reality for a few precious hours. The old wooden staircase creaked beneath my tired footsteps as I climbed. Dim hallway lights cast long, faint shadows on the faded wallpaper. At the end of the hall was my bedroom, a small sanctuary I'd come to cherish, especially since my nephew James had started staying with me a few weeks earlier. He had just turned 23, trying to find his way after dropping out of university. Since his mom, my sister, had moved out of state, I offered him a place to stay for a while. Having James around brought an unexpected comfort. He had a quiet energy that softened the usual silence of the house. Still, his presence changed things. My once solitary routine now danced to a new rhythm. Yet I was grateful. He wasn't the kind of guest who needed to be entertained. He kept to himself, spent hours in the garage with his music and sketch pads, only occasionally emerging with a shy grin to ask if I wanted takeout or to watch a movie with him. I liked that about him, that he never forced anything. He just let the days unfold however they wanted. There was something else too, something I hadn't dared to name, a closeness that felt like more than just family. But I didn't linger on that thought. Not then. I pushed open my bedroom door and stepped inside, already pulling my shirt over my head. The room was cool, the ceiling fan spinning softly overhead. I didn't bother turning on the main light, just the small lamp on the nightstand, casting a warm amber glow across the room. I stripped down to my boxers, tossed my clothes into the hamper, and sank into bed with a deep sigh that felt like my body letting go all at once. The sheets were crisp. The pillow cradled my head perfectly. My eyelids grew heavy. I didn't even check my phone. I just lay there, letting the exhaustion pull me under. Sleep came fast, like a wave crashing over a worn shore. No dreams, no thoughts. Just still, uninterrupted darkness. I don't know how many hours passed before I stirred. At first, I didn't even know why I woke up. The fan above still hummed steadily. There wasn't any loud noise, but something had shifted. The air felt different. A faint presence lingered, like my subconscious noticed it before I was fully awake. I stayed still, caught between sleep and wakefulness, not sure if I was imagining things. My mind floated, heavy and slow, reluctant to come back. Then I heard it, a soft creak, the kind a door makes when opened very carefully, slowly, as if someone didn't want to be noticed. My bedroom door. I was sure I had closed it. My breathing slowed, but my heart began to beat faster. I wasn't afraid, just confused, still too groggy to react. Silence stretched. Then I felt it, the weight of someone sitting on the edge of my bed. The presence became more solid, real. A familiar scent reached me. Clean soap, a hint of cologne, warm skin. James. I didn't open my eyes. Not yet. I stayed still, caught in a strange mix of curiosity and uncertainty. The mattress shifted slightly like he leaned closer. Then, a touch. Barely more than a whisper. His fingers brushed the top of my arm. My breath caught. It wasn't a touch that demanded attention. It didn't jolt. I could have spoken. I could have turned over, asked what he was doing. But something in me didn't want to break the moment. There was no fear, just the quiet of the room and the steady warmth of his hand. The tension between us filled the air like the stillness before a storm. I realized then how aware I'd always been of James, how often I'd caught myself watching him when I shouldn't. His arms as he carried groceries, the curve of his smile, the softness in his eyes when he got lost in thought. I cracked my eyes open just a little, letting in the faint light from the lamp. He was there, sitting beside me, his profile bathed in gold. His eyes were low, shoulders slightly hunched, like he was deep in thought. His hand rested on my arm, still, warm, gentle, and that feeling returned, that unspoken something that had hovered between us for weeks but never quite landed. He hadn't noticed I was awake, so I stayed silent, watching him, my mind racing with questions I wasn't ready to answer, feelings I didn't yet know what to do with. There was something different in the way his thumb gently moved back and forth across my skin. It wasn't random. It wasn't accidental. And suddenly, I knew. He didn't come in here by mistake. I wasn't supposed to be awake, but something deep inside me refused to drift back into sleep. I lay still, not daring to move or make a sound. My eyes barely open, I watched James lying next to me. His hand still rested on my arm, his thumb moving slowly, tracing faint circles over my skin. The way he touched me, it wasn't careless. It was deliberate, gentle. Like he was testing a line he wasn't sure he was allowed to cross. He exhaled softly, not quite a sigh, but close. Then he glanced down at my face, just for a moment, just long enough to study me in the dim light. I kept my breathing slow and steady, even though every part of me was wide awake, tense, alert, buzzing. If he had spoken just then, if he had whispered my name, I might have broken, but he didn't. His gaze lingered for another second before dropping back to where his fingers brushed against me. I didn't fully understand what was happening, but I felt it. The tension between us wasn't just hanging in the air anymore. It was alive, pulsing like electricity. James had always affected me more than I wanted to admit. I used to think it was just his sensitivity, the way he listened, really listened, when people spoke, like he saw something in them that others missed. But this wasn't that. This was different. He shifted a little, his body leaning just slightly closer to mine, and now I could feel his breath, soft and warm, as he moved in, just a bit, like he was still unsure, still testing the moment. His hand slid from my arm to the edge of the blanket. His fingers curled lightly around the fabric. My skin burned beneath the touch, but still I didn't move. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. "What are you doing, James?" I wanted to ask him. I wanted to say the words, but they stayed stuck in my throat, caught in the silence. He didn't rush. If anything, his movements were slow, hesitant, like he expected me to stop him at any moment. But I didn't. I didn't even flinch. His hand moved again, this time resting gently on my chest, just above the blanket, just above the place where my heartbeat thundered under his palm. He wasn't shaking, but something in his posture told me he was holding himself back. My breath caught in my chest, and his eyes flicked up toward mine again. And this time, he saw. He saw my eyes were open, watching him. His expression changed, just slightly, but I noticed it. His jaw tightened. His eyes widened. He froze like someone who had been caught mid-step, realizing too late that the line he'd been walking had already disappeared beneath him. We stared at each other, our faces only inches apart. The air between us was thick, heavy. I didn't know whether to speak or wait for him to. His hand stayed where it was, still pressed gently against me. "Uncle," he whispered. His voice was barely audible. "I thought you were asleep." My mouth was dry. I tried to speak, but nothing came at first. Then finally I managed to whisper. "I was." James didn't move. His hand stayed. His eyes didn't look away. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't mean—" But the words died on his lips. We both knew that wasn't true. The silence stretched between us, not awkward, but charged, like something long buried had finally surfaced. Something we both felt, but never spoke aloud. "You came in here," I said softly, watching him, "in the middle of the night." "I couldn't sleep," he replied, his voice shaking a little. "And I needed to be near you." Such a simple sentence, but it made my chest ache. The vulnerability in his voice hit me like a wave. The fog in my mind began to clear, and I saw it, really saw it in his eyes. He wasn't playing games. He wasn't confused. He had been carrying something heavy inside him, quietly, painfully, and tonight it finally broke free. I sat up slowly, pushing the blanket aside, and leaned back against the headboard. James shifted back a little, his hand slipping off me, but he didn't leave the bed. I looked at him, not sure what to say, not sure if there was anything I could say. His expression was uncertain now, guarded, like he was bracing himself to be rejected. James, I started, but I stopped. There was too much inside me, too much tangled together, guilt, confusion, and something else, something warmer, darker, something that had been quietly alive for longer than I ever admitted. He swallowed hard, his hands now in his lap, fingers fidgeting with the edge of his shirt. "I didn't mean to make things weird," he said, almost in a whisper. "I know I shouldn't have come in here, but I couldn't stop myself. I've been trying to forget these thoughts, and they just keep getting louder. I should have told him to go. I should have reminded him that he was my nephew, that this couldn't happen, that it shouldn't happen. But the words didn't come, because the truth was, I'd had those thoughts too. Quiet thoughts, unspoken, pushed deep down beneath denial. But they were there. "I've been thinking about you," he said suddenly. The words spilled from him before he could stop them. "Not just as family. I know it's wrong. I know how it sounds, but I can't help it. I feel something when I'm around you, and I don't want to pretend anymore." His words dropped into the silence like stones into water, sending ripples through everything I thought I had under control. I turned to him slowly, my voice low. "Careful. You understand what you're saying, right?" He nodded. He didn't even blink. "I do. You're my nephew, James. I know, but I don't care. And the worst part, the part that made my stomach twist, was that neither did I. Or maybe I just couldn't. Not in that moment. Not with the way he was looking at me. Not with the rawness in his voice. Not with the truth we had both tried so hard to hide. For weeks there had been this silence between us, thick, quiet, and undeniable. I should have been the one to end it, to set a boundary. But I didn't. I just watched him, and he watched me, and the stillness between us deepened, growing heavier, until it felt like we were both wrapped inside of it. The ceiling fan above spun slowly, stirring the air but doing nothing to cool the heat building in my chest. "I've tried to fight it," James said, his voice barely louder than a breath, like he was afraid of what might happen if he said the words too loud. "I've told myself it's just comfort, or loneliness, or how close we've gotten. But it's not that, it's you. It's always been you." My chest tightened. I turned my face away, just to get a second of space. I could feel his eyes still on me, searching, aching for some kind of reaction. The bed creaked as he shifted closer, not touching me, not yet, but near enough that I could feel the warmth of his skin, the weight of his breath in the space between us. "I don't expect anything from you," he said, his voice even quieter now. "I just needed you to know." My eyes dropped to his hands. They were trembling, fingers locked tightly in his lap, his nails digging into his skin. Vulnerability poured off him in waves, and something inside me, something I had kept hidden for so long, shame, longing, that quiet awareness of him I never dared name, shuddered under the weight of it. "I've thought about you too," I said suddenly, before I could stop myself. His head snapped up, his eyes locking onto mine, wide, stunned, searching. I felt my face flush, heat creeping up my neck. But I didn't take it back. I couldn't. It was the truth. And even now, with every reason to deny it, I didn't want to lie. "You have," James whispered. I nodded slowly. I didn't want to admit it. I told myself it was admiration, or a need to protect you. But it's more than that. And I hate that it is. I hate that I felt this and didn't know what to do with it. He leaned in a little more, not touching, just close enough that our knees brushed under the sheets. His eyes flicked to my mouth for half a second, then back to mine. The room suddenly felt smaller. "You don't have to hate it," he said softly. "Not with me." The mattress shifted as he moved. He sat beside me, Not looming, just close. Our arms were almost touching. My breath caught when I felt his fingers graze the back of my hand. Light, tentative, but not hesitant. He was waiting, not pushing, just waiting for me to do something, say something, or simply not pull away. And I didn't. I turned my hand just slightly, letting his fingers slide into mine. The contact sent a jolt straight through me. We sat like that, in the dark, holding each other's hand like it was the only real thing left in a world that didn't make sense anymore. "It doesn't have to be anything more," James said, barely a whisper. "But if you want it to be, I'm here." His honesty cracked something open in me. He wasn't trying to seduce me. He wasn't trying to convince me. He was just being real, offering himself this moment without expectations. And in that silence, I realized how long it had been since someone looked at me like that. Not with lust, not out of duty, but with quiet, aching want. I turned to him slowly, our hands still tangled. He moved with me instinctively, like we were synced in some invisible rhythm. His forehead rested gently against mine, and our noses touched. The air between us was charged, thin. I could feel the tremor in his breath, the slight squeeze of his hand around mine. "I don't know how to do this," I whispered, my voice cracking. "You don't have to know," he replied. "We can figure it out together." And then, as if something pulled us closer, we closed that last small gap. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, hesitant. A question, not an answer. Our lips barely brushed, but it sent a ripple through me that shook every part of my being. James let out a sound, half a breath, half a sigh, and leaned into the kiss, deepening it, his free hand rising to cup the side of my neck. It felt like falling, like the world had tilted and I was just letting go. His mouth was warm, his lips moved against mine, with this slow, aching tenderness that made it impossible to think. There was no rush, no urgency, just the gentle unfolding of something that had been waiting a long time. When we finally pulled back, breathless, eyes adjusting to the darkness, I saw it in his gaze. Emotion, uncertainty, relief, want, hope. "I've wanted this for so long," he said softly, his forehead still resting against mine. "And it's not just physical. I mean, yeah, I've thought about that too. But it's mental. His words hit me hard. My chest ached. I swallowed the lump in my throat and cupped his cheek, feeling the smooth line of his jaw beneath my palm. "You do matter," I said. "You always have." We stayed like that, our faces close, our breathing slowly sinking. The moment stretched out, soft and wordless, full of unspoken understanding. Then he leaned in again, this time slower, more certain. His lips met mine once more, and there was no hesitation. The kiss deepened naturally, like we were discovering something new and real. Like we were exploring each other for the first time, with gentle, aching care. His hand moved from my chest to the side of my neck, steady, warm, deliberate, even as his breath quickened. I found myself touching his hip, not pulling, just resting my hand there, feeling the tremble under his skin. James shifted, sliding his legs fully onto the bed, facing me now. The rest of the world faded, no fan, no hallway light, no ticking clock, just his presence, his breath, his mouth still tasting faintly of mint and sleep. His hands came up, cupping my face with such tenderness it nearly broke me. Like I was something delicate, something worth holding. The warmth of his body soaked into mine. I caught the scent of his shampoo, something citrusy and clean. And I realized I had noticed it before, but never like this. His energy vibrated with nerves, but it wasn't fear. It was anticipation. And the way he kissed me, soft, cautious, then hungrier, deeper, made it impossible not to respond. Our hands explored gently, not greedy, not rushed. Just learning. My fingers traced the curve of his shoulder, slid down the smooth slope of his back. He arched into the touch, a quiet sound escaping him, raw and real. And that sound lit something in me I hadn't allowed myself to feel in a long time. desire, but not the kind that disappears with the morning light. This was heavier, rooted. We weren't rushing. We were finally surrendering to something that had lived in silence for far too long. James leaned closer, his chest brushing mine. I shifted back, my head finding the pillow. He followed, never breaking contact. He climbed over me slowly, carefully, like someone stepping into a river for the first time, not knowing how deep it is, but needing to feel it anyway. He straddled me lightly, his elbows resting on his knees, and our bodies aligned so naturally it left me breathless. We kissed again, but this time the quiet patience gave way to something deeper, something hungry. He tilted his head, adjusting to fit against me better. I felt the press of his body lower down, the heat of him now impossible to ignore. A soft gasp left him when our hips brushed. His hand gripped the side of my neck, just enough pressure to make my head spin. His forehead touched mine. "Is this okay?" he asked, his voice cracking, barely steady. "Yes," I breathed. There was no space left for hesitation. Yes, it was okay, and more than okay. It felt inevitable. His hands slid down my sides, gentle but sure. I let mine explore in return. His skin was smooth and warm, and under my fingers, he trembled. Not with fear, but something closer to relief. We moved slowly, every touch a question and an answer all at once. No rush, no pretending. James pressed his face into the curve of my neck, his breath hot against my skin. He exhaled slowly, shakily, and then pressed a soft, open-mouthed kiss just below my jaw. I curled my fingers into his lower back, pulling him closer. He shifted again, sliding further against me. I felt the firm line of his arousal pressing into mine through the thin fabric between us. A low sound escaped my throat, instinctive, unplanned, and he responded with another kiss, deeper this time, hungrier. His hips began to move, slow and deliberate. I matched the rhythm without thinking, our bodies finding a pace of their own. "I've thought about this," he whispered against my skin. "Every night." I didn't need to ask what he meant. I could feel it, in the way he held me, the way he moved, the tremble in every breath. His voice sent a shiver through me. I dragged my hands up his spine, feeling the way his muscles tensed and shifted beneath my touch. We were tangled. Closer, resting his head on my shoulder. His voice was steadier now. "Then let's not think about next. Let's just think about now. About us." I closed my eyes, breathing him in. "Okay," I whispered. "Just us." The sun rose, sending gold across the floor, and I didn't feel panic, or guilt, or shame. I felt full, like something that had always been missing was finally in its place. James shifted slightly, whispering, "I love you." The words were soft, unsure, but real. I turned, kissed his forehead, and answered without hesitation, "I love you too." And in that moment, it wasn't complicated. It was simple, honest. As we drifted into sleep again, tangled together in a bed that had once been mine alone, I knew this wasn't a mistake. It was a beginning neither of us had expected, but both of us needed. And whatever came next, fear, confusion, consequence, we'd face it together. We had stopped pretending, and we were never going back. The weeks that followed moved gently, like even the house knew something had changed. James and I didn't rush to define anything. There were no long talks trying to explain it, no frantic labeling. We just let the days speak for us, a glance over coffee, fingers brushing in passing, the way he lingered in doorways waiting for me to ask him to stay. Sometimes I did. He started sleeping in my room more often than not. It wasn't always physical. Sometimes he'd just curl up next to me, his hand resting on my chest like that closeness alone was enough. And it was. We moved through our routines with a new softness, a quiet gentleness in how we talked, how we touched, how we looked at each other. Of course there were doubts, fleeting fears of what it all meant, of how the world might see it. But inside our little bubble, it felt real. It felt right. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun sink into the trees, James leaned his head on my shoulder and whispered, I feel like I finally have a home. I kissed his hair and held him tighter, because I felt it too. Whatever we were building, however fragile, however unconventional, it was ours, and it was growing stronger every day. We didn't need to explain it. We just kept choosing it, every single day.